Racing cars. I love rally. I love motorsports, so I spend a lot of time practicing and doing motorsports. I also do, on occasion, I go and look after cows. I'm an avid farmer, and I love beef. So I have many cows. Okay, I love Tommy McKinnon. And, maybe he was World Rally Championship, late 90s, early 2000s. And I loved the Evolution 5 that he used to drive. And that's one of the motivators that got me into rallying. Yes. Okay. Locally, it's a tight competition between Ian Duncan and Flash Tundu. They're both certified nuts. Yes. I have a small family. I have one wife and one child. It's always surreal, and I don't think I've settled into it even now. It's always surreal, and it's quite an amazing feeling, and quite intimidating, even today, to be around the president. He doesn't switch off. Yeah, so he's always the president. He doesn't switch off, and his job doesn't really allow him. You can be having a very casual discussion, but you know, he takes one look at his phone, or one of my other colleagues would whisper into his ear, and you know, the day changes depending on what has been told. So it there's been no off button. Yeah. You promise you won't make fun of me.
I will not make fun of you. Most of
in no particular order. So I love Gengetone. I love bongo. My previous all-time favorite artist was Lady JD, but the Tanzanians somehow keep churning them out. So I like Mario very much. Locally, I can't get enough of Genge. I love this Kijana Trio. You know, I just think he's the future of music if he can keep his head on his shoulders. My favorite meal is still beef with something else. So if we really must eat something else, you know, we can eat ugali, a nice ugali. I love traditional food. I think I ate my fair share of junk, and one day I just gave it all up. And I just eat primarily traditional foods. But I love my beef, and I think I know 600 ways to cook it. Yeah. Yes, I can. Yeah. I was thrown out. I moved out of home quite early, and I got married quite late. So there was a gap in between when I had to feed myself. Yes. So I did learn how to cook. It was okay. I mean, my experience in England, I was very happy with the education. I eventually got to like the people a lot, and the quality of education was fantastic. But the weather, I just didn't agree with me. And the day I graduated, I left the same day I graduated, and I was in such a hurry to leave that I forgot my degree on top of a taxi on my way to catch a bus, because I was in the rural areas. I was deep in Sheffield, which then, you know, in the 90s was quite, was not as big as it is today. So I graduated at about 11:30 p.m., took my photo at 12, got a taxi in, you know, by the side of the students' hall, went straight to the bus station, and started getting onto the bus. And then I could hear this guy calling me, running to the bus and waving this paper. And I'm wondering now, what karatasi does this guy want to give me? I didn't realize that it was my degree. And that man probably saved my life, because if I turned up in Nairobi without a degree, I'll probably not be sitting here in front of you. Yeah. Of course, I know her as a musician. Oh, I know of Rihannas, of course.
Yes, she's pregnant. You've probably seen that.
Yeah, I just saw, I couldn't avoid my WhatsApp groups. So, of course, her picture kept cropping up in the different WhatsApp group. Of course, we are all disappointed. Yeah. Yes.
Why?
And I commiserate with the entire male species. Yes. But you know, parenthood is one of the greatest joys. So I wish her and her partner, I think that's the right word. Yes. Her and her partner, I wish them all the best, and I pray that they have a healthy baby and that it brings them great joy. Still, Sauti Sol. I have seen Sauti Sol from when they were nothing. And they are for me, they are probably the best example of creativity, resilience, commitment, and excellence that we have in Kenyan creative industry. Those boys sang at my wedding. And they did so with such grace. They made my wedding, they turned my wedding from a wedding into a really emotive function. So I have a lot of time for them, and if I can get to, they say they're releasing something this year, I can't wait. And if they have a concert and we can get rid of this COVID, I'll be very keen to go. Am I allowed to say that? Because I still have to go back home.
Yeah, you can. You can tell me an old, mine was Britney Spears. You know.
Oh my goodness. I think, what, Salma Hayek? Yeah. Because I think that's when they had all those Tarantino movies coming out, and she was at the center of them. Yeah, I remember in my house where me and my housemates, one of them had an inordinately large poster of Salma, so we used to see her every morning. We've had very many guests, but it's a tight competition. I think it would be a tie between the Prime Minister of, I believe it was Lesotho, because we had the state banquet and the song was played and all of them stood to dance. And you know, us Kenyans are a bit conservative, and it took us a while to join the jig. But the ministers, the Prime Minister, all of them in complete perfect sync. My favorite, is His Excellency President Museveni, who can speak possibly every language that there is in our region quite well. He knows the history of our people, and he has shocking amounts of detail about just language and the language that we speak, you know. I went for a function once with His Excellency the President, and we had carried an MP, a former MP from Kibwezi region, and as soon as the MP introduced himself, Museveni just kicked off in mother tongue and started having a discussion with him about where he was born and his father and everything. And it turned out that this MP was born in Uganda. And so Museveni by far is my favorite. Yes, I probably know, I hear it better than I speak it. Like many of this generation, most of us were brought up in Nairobi. Our parents communicated to us in English and Kiswahili. The language of teaching was mostly English and Kiswahili. So you find that my Kikamba would annoy a lot of people. but it's also quite interesting to listen to. I love the language. It's the most poetic language there is. Because of my grandmother, I learned how to pay attention, because if I didn't understand what she said, she would be extremely curt and quite curly. Mbaito mwaseo ngai amwathime inyonde na February nesa piu.